There's something to be said about the fact that this industry is completely different than it was 9-10 years ago when I first started, you know? So things don't look the same, success doesn't look the same, everything is totally different. So I feel like in some ways, while I have been doing this for 10 years, it feels like I'm kind of like stepping in as a new
maybe. How are you gonna follow up with Combo? Maybe I was like, I don't know, how am I gonna follow up? But I remember kind of taking a walk and deciding that I wasn't gonna come home until I'd really shooken off that feeling, because it ultimately was sort of my first real opportunity to finally live out my dream, which was a worldwide release of some music.
I think that fame, the idea of fame has been like kind of this very heavy tool for like kind of control and propaganda, in my opinion.
Alessia Cara.
The Best New Artist Award at the 2018 Grammys caused a lot of controversy involving Alessia Cara and SZA.
With like the whole like Grammy moment. I felt guilty. Like I felt guilt for winning something that I had no control over. I felt bad, I felt guilty.
I want to know when y'all gonna start paying attention to my sister Alessia Cara.
Sorry, but it's time we acknowledge that Alessia Cara is underrated.
It's harder to be yourself in this industry than it is to do the other thing. Everybody is their bravest self when they're behind a screen, and I get it, fans are very passionate, as they should be, but yeah, you just have to remember that's not reality, and I don't think any of those people would say that to my face. I don't think they'd come up to me on the street and wish me death, you know?
Right. The music industry moves fast. One day you're everywhere on the charts, at the award shows, all over social media, and then one day you're just not. No controversy, no massive failure, just silence. We've seen it happen to a lot of artists, but with Alessia Cara, it felt different because she didn't burst onto the scene with a viral gimmick or a manufactured image. She showed up with actual talent, a distinct voice, and songs that actually meant something. She had what most new artists dream of: a massive debut, a Grammy, respect from both critics and fans. And yet, somewhere along the way, the spotlight just dimmed and the industry just kinda moved on without her. The buzz died down, the headlines stopped, and her name slowly disappeared from the playlist that once celebrated her. Let's go all the way back to 2015. Pop music was shiny, upbeat, and full of perfect hair and choreographed dance routines. Selena Gomez was singing about hands to herself.
Can't keep my hands to myself.
Justin Bieber was apologizing, and The Weeknd was finally getting radio play for singing about drugs with a high note.
I can feel my face when I'm with you.
Then out of nowhere came Alessia Cara. An 18-year-old Canadian girl singing about standing in the corner at a party she didn't even want to attend. Here wasn't just a song, it was a moment. It was anti-pop, but somehow very pop at the same time, and this is why it blew up. Not because of a label push, not because of a viral dance challenge, but because the song was that relatable. It felt honest, not packaged, not tested by marketing teams, just real. She literally posted acoustic covers on YouTube. She had no slashy wardrobe, her hair wasn't styled by a high-fashion glam squad. She looked like a normal teenage girl who got lost and accidentally walked into the music industry, and the people loved it. Her debut album, Know It All, followed shortly after, and it was just as refreshing. Songs like 17,
Now I wish I could freeze the time at 7. My mother said, don't forget.
and Scars to Your Beautiful
There's a hope that's waiting for you in the dark. You should know you.
tackled everything from growing pains to body image, and again, she didn't preach, she just told the truth. It was vulnerable in a way pop rarely is. There was no manufactured empowerment, no overproduced drama, just a girl in oversized sweaters telling you what it felt like to exist in a world that demanded perfection when you didn't even want to be looked at. What made Alessia's debut perfect wasn't just the music, it was was the timing. The industry needed a reset. Audiences were tired of the same 3 writers rolling out hits for every artist, and here came this girl writing her own stuff, talking about not wanting to be famous while becoming famous. And the best part, her voice was actually good. Not good for a YouTuber, not good for a teenager, just good, period. She didn't rely on gimmicks. There was no era or aesthetic. Alessia was the aesthetic. Casual, self-aware, and emotionally intelligent beyond her years. But unfortunately, the industry that praised her for not being like others eventually lost interest for the same reason. After the whirlwind of her debut era, the platinum plaques, the Grammy, the think pieces, all eyes were on what Alessia would do next. This was supposed to be her reaffirmation, her confirmation, the I'm not just a one album wonder moment. But then came the pain of growing, her second studio album. Now before we get into the numbers, let's talk about the actual music, because that's the part everyone conveniently forgets. The album was actually really good, introspective, mature, and deeply personal. She leaned into a more sophisticated sound, a little more indie, a little more stripped back. The lyrics were reflective and honest in a way that showed she wasn't trying to chase trends. She was just trying to grow emotionally, artistically, all of it. She wrote or co-wrote every song. She even executive produced the album herself. She wasn't hiding behind big-name producers or waiting for someone to hand her a hit. This was her project 100%. But here's the thing about being genuine in pop music. It doesn't always translate to sales. The lead single, Growing Pains, was actually what it sounded like. Raw, awkward, and brutally honest, but unfortunately, it didn't crack the top 40. The next single, Trust My Lonely,
Go get your praise from someone else. You didn't number on my head.
had a cute groove to it, but still radio didn't care. Streaming didn't push it, and the general public was too busy watching the rise of TikTok stars and SoundCloud rappers. That's the context. Alessia wasn't competing with other singers, songwriters. She was trying to tell thoughtful stories during a time when music was all about shock value and instant gratification, and it didn't help that the rollout was kind of non-existent. There was no viral marketing, no TikTok strategy, not that it was even fully a thing yet, but still no fashion-forward rebrand, just Alessia in a suit standing in front of a beige background. That was the aesthetic. And don't get me wrong, the metaphor behind the oversized suit was actually brilliant. It symbolized the uncomfortable fit of adulthood, of trying to grow into yourself, but let's be honest, that doesn't exactly scream clickable content. The truth is, her second album got lost, not because it was bad, but because it was quiet, and quiet music doesn't trend. Even critics who praised the project admitted it was easy to miss if you weren't paying attention, and that's the heartbreak of the modern industry. You can make the best art of your life, but if you're not loud, people will assume you disappeared. Alessia did not disappear, she just wasn't being shouted about anymore. And when a follow-up doesn't dominate like your debut, the narrative changes. Suddenly, you're not a young genius, you're a flop, a has-been, a Grammy-cursed case study, and that narrative is hard to shake, even when it's so far from the truth.
Whatever happened to Carly Rae Jepsen, the girl who became a viral musical sensation overnight 11 years ago, who sang this song which has over 1.5 million views?
Carly Rae Jepsen has all the trappings to be an established main pop girl, and a lot of this continued success rode on her release following the fame of her hit single Call Me Maybe.
How are you gonna follow up with Call Me Maybe? I was like, I don't know, how am I gonna follow up?
Once in a while, someone releases the perfect pop song. Not just a catchy one, but one that defines an entire year, dominates every playlist, and somehow manages to unite the internet for about 3 minutes of pure serotonin. For most people, that song was Call Me Maybe. It was catchy, simple, and instantly recognizable. You could hear it once and still have it stuck in your head the next 10 years. But behind this song's success is a much more complicated story. One about what happens after perfection. Because Carly Rae Jepsen didn't just make the perfect pop song, she made one so perfect that it almost destroyed her career.
I would argue that Call Me Maybe was a monolith of a pop song, with an amazing catchy pop melody, too good, too saccharine, that it became bigger than Carly Rae Jepsen herself.
Let's go back to 2012. The Hunger Games was in theaters, everyone was wearing neon for some reason, and TikTok didn't exist yet, which meant people actually had to learn entire dances for YouTube. And right in the middle of that chaos was a 26-year-old Canadian singer named Carly Rae Jepsen. Before Call Me Maybe, she wasn't famous, at least not outside of Canada.
I think you're an absolute bona fide total star.
Released a small indie album and was quietly working on music that blended folk with light pop. Carly wrote Call Me Maybe with 2 other musicians, and originally it wasn't meant to be a big hit, it was just a fun little track for Canadian radio.
My guitarist and I were working on while we were on the road together, and we brought it with us to our friend Josh Ramsey, and the 3 of us kind of collaborated and made sort of a folky pop song.
But then Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez posted a video lip-syncing to the song, and of course it went viral. The song just exploded overnight. Suddenly, it was #1 in over 20 countries, streamed hundreds of millions of times, and played at every school dance, wedding. However, with that success came something else, a new label. People didn't see Carly Rae Jepsen, the artist, they saw Carly Rae Jepsen, the Call Me Maybe girl, and that's when the curse began. The funny thing about having a song that's too successful is that it becomes bigger than the actual artist. Carly's entire image got frozen in time, this cheerful, flirty, girl next door pop star who makes music for teen movies, and when she tried to move past that image, people just weren't interested. Her next singles like This Kiss, Good Time, and Tonight I'm Getting Over You, all had the same polished production, catchy hooks, and fun lyrics. They were great pop songs, but the world had already decided who she was.
You see, even though Call Me Maybe was Carly Rae Jepsen's big splash into popular media, especially in the US, the virality of that song also diminished expectations for what she would produce in the future.
So basically, Carly wasn't an artist to follow, she was a meme to remember. And when she released her next album, Kiss, it didn't do nearly as well as everyone expected. Critics called it too bubblegum, the sales dropped, and Carly quietly faded from mainstream radio.
Hi, young lady. What is your name?
Grace.
Grace, you're a beautiful young lady, you know that?
Thank you, I guess.
How old are you?
12.
Are you excited to be here?
It's crazy.
Instead of describing it as like experiencing success at a young age, I would like describe it as like the facade of fame being shattered for me very, very early.
I value the things that I would like to value, which definitely annoyed some people in the past because they had like this really set path for me. And like, I think they really wanted me to be like, oh yeah, like I want to, you know, do all of this like major, you know, across the board. Like, here's my smart water and here's my new pop song and I love everyone. Da, da, da.
There are very few moments in modern pop culture that feel universally agreed upon. Moments where everyone, casual viewers, critics, talent shows, skeptics, even Simon Cowell himself all seem to nod at the same time and go, yeah, this one is different. Grace VanderWaal's America's Got Talent audition in 2016 was one of those moments.
Hi, young lady. What is your name?
Grace.
Grace, you're a beautiful young lady, you know that?
Thank you.
A 12-year-old girl walks onto the stage holding a ukulele that looks almost too big for her. She's nervous, her voice shakes when she talks. Simon looks unimpressed, the crowd doesn't even know what to expect, and then she sings an original song.
I don't know my name.
And suddenly the room changes. Simon Cowell hits the golden buzzer, confetti rains from the ceiling, and the show crowns her not just as a contestant, but as a phenomenon. From that moment on, Grace VanderWaal wasn't just a kid who could sing, she was an idea. The idea that raw talent still wins, that authenticity still matters, that the industry hadn't completely lost its soul, and that very idea would end up being both her greatest asset and her biggest curse. Grace VanderWaal's early success was less about discovery and more about definition. From her very first audition, AGT framed her as an exception. She wasn't just another contestant, she was positioned as proof that real talent still existed. Original songs, a simple instrument, minimal staging, everything was stripped back to emphasize sincerity.
This is a show about surprises, and you use the word miracle, and I think you are a living, beautiful, walking miracle.
And that framing worked because it was easy to understand. Grace wasn't just good, she was pure, and purity is a powerful marketing tool, especially when attached to a child.
Believe that you can win?
Well, I mean, miracles can happen, so possibly.
However, the issue with that framing is that it leaves no room for evolution. Once the audience decides what you represent, any deviation starts to feel wrong, even if it's completely natural. And once that narrative solidified, it became the reference point for everything that came after. Any future version of Grace would be measured against that original image, not on its own terms, but on how closely it matched what people already decided she was.
Quite simply, narrative engages the entire human brain, the entire human experience. If a string of words can affect a person in such a profound way, how powerful can the art of story be? Stories can heal, stories can teach, stories can inspire, stories can enlighten, stories can resolve.
And by the time Grace VanderWaal won America's Got Talent, her role in the public imagination was already set. After the show ended, Grace moved into the industry quickly, which is usually seen as a good thing. She released an EP, then her debut album, Just the Beginning, in 2017. The album made sense, it stayed close to the sound and tone people expected. It didn't challenge the audience, it did not reject the origin story, it just extended it. Critically, the response was fine, not overwhelming, but just positive enough. Commercially though, the reaction was way quieter than the hype suggested it would have been. When an artist is introduced as a prodigy, they're not allowed a slow or uneven build. Every release is treated as proof of whether the initial praise was justified.
I think that there was sort of this I felt a shift into young womanhood where I am now sort of like a free-for-all dumping ground of just hatred. And that's why also
Grace wasn't just releasing music, she was constantly being evaluated against a moment that happened when she was literally 12. Instead of being allowed to grow into her own career, she was expected to justify it immediately. As Grace entered her teenage years, her creative direction began to change, not dramatically, not suddenly, but noticeably. Her sound became more pop-leaning.
We pour our souls out about the past months, but just trying to talk about.
Her visuals grew darker and more stylized. Her fashion choices became bolder and less relatable in the way people had originally embraced. None of this was unusual. In fact, it was expected, but the response to these changes wasn't engagement, it was distance. Instead of audiences following her evolution, many simply disengaged, not because the music was objectively worse, but because it didn't align with the version of Grace they had emotionally attached to. The issue wasn't the quality of the work. Grace's music was the same quality as when she debuted.
According to the mere exposure effect, one of the oldest and most robust theories in the history of psychology, the mere exposure of any stimulus to you over time will bias you toward that stimulus. In English, familiarity good.
Because Grace apparently wasn't allowed to grow gradually in public, each step forward was treated as deviation rather than a continuation. That's it for today's video. If you made it this far, thank you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this one. But now, I want to know, what do you think? Do you think being labeled as authentic early in a career helps or hurts artists in the long run? Let me know in the comments. And also, if you have any suggestions for future videos, please let me know as well. And with that being said, thank you for being here, thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you very soon.